All right, so let's talk about Brazil.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Can you give me some background on the project itself? Why
So what we're doing is called Capstone Project.
Capstone?
Yeah, Capstone means research.
Oh.
So we had to choose a country. We chose Brazil.
Yeah.
And we had to find a person that lived there, and
Yeah.
I believe it was 14 until age 14.
Yeah, at least
At
till age
least.
14.
And from there we, well,
I fall in that category, so
Yep.
you're good with that.
yeah. So we did a little background research, and well, here we are.
All right.
So, you guys ready?
Yeah.
All right.
Let me get
Should we make an introduction?
So,
I wish.
Okay.
Can I Google it?
What?
Okay.
You wanna start? You
You
start.
do- it's your-
Should we make an introduction?
Yeah, no, we should. Like,
What?
you know, like I'm CJ and Nick, and then we
Oh.
say who we're interviewing and the date and everything.
Oh, we have to say that?
Yeah, so that she knows that it's
Today
actually-
is
Oh, yeah, right. Today's the 17th, May 17th, 2019. My voice is
Friday,
Nicholas.
7 o'clock in the evening. You guys are making me do this. That's for your teacher to
Free
see it and hear it. Ah.
So, I'm Nicholas,
I'm Leo.
I'm CJ.
and this is Miss Ribeiro,
First name Melissa. Please call me Melissa.
Melissa Ribeiro, everyone.
Yeah.
Our interviewee. So, let's get this show on the road.
Yeah.
Alright.
Okay. Wait, which one should I start with?
Does it matter?
What about, do you want me to get started and talk a little bit about Brazil, and then you can start
Sure.
with your questions?
Sure.
Yeah.
Maybe I can start talking a little bit about myself
Yeah, like
when I
what-
moved.
Yeah, like what was your experience in Brazil?
Yes. So, I come from a family, I would say a very large family, very traditional Catholic, even though we do not actually go to Catholic church, and I don't remember going to Catholic church, but because Brazil is, I think Brazil is the largest country in the world, Catholic country in the world. I think that's still the case. That was the case a couple of years ago, but you know, with, you know, the whole issues that we are facing around the Catholic Church, you guys probably have heard about it. This is changing a little bit, so I don't know what the number is right now, but it was the largest Catholic country in the world. That's my dog. So back to me and my family, very traditional family. I am the oldest child. I have a sister. She also lived here in the US for many years. I think she lived here for 9 or 10 years. She's now back in Brazil. My parents live there, uncles, cousins. We are very close to each other, so it's really hard to live abroad, as you can imagine. I still have a lot of friends in Brazil. When I moved, I was 26 years old, so half of my life was in Brazil. I'm getting now close to another half here. Lived by the beach, very tropical type of weather. That's pretty much across Brazil. You may find areas where the temperature may go below the 60s, but never below 50. So it's not cold. So I think I saw one of your questions or somewhere that talks about climate and that how that helps us or impacts or interfere in how we live. Having a warm weather, you know, I think has a lot to do with who we are. Brazilians, we are very very friendly. We tend to be always very happy for some reason, even though you may know we are a developing country, not developed yet. Some may call Brazil a third world country, for many reasons that you guys may be aware of: poverty, crime, and other factors. But you know, yeah, despite the poverty, we are very happy. I don't know why. Don't ask me why. Maybe the climate helps with that. We have the largest carnival in the world. Yeah, you guys have something similar to it. I don't want to call it similar, but something that you could relate to, which is the Mardi Gras in New Orleans.
Okay.
What else?
Quick question is, so you said that your sister moved here as well,
She
right?
did, yeah.
Did you guys move here for the same reason and at the same time?
No, she moved first.
Okay.
The reason why she moved was because she wanted to see the world. She had two Brazilian friends here living here in the U.S. at the time. But those two friends moved for different reasons. They were actually looking for, you know, a better life, better education in Brazil. Not everybody has access to good colleges, good schools, and the ones that do, it's probably 1% of the population that actually have access to that. So
why America then, or the U.S.? Why?
yeah, that's a good question. You know, back then the U.S. was the country to move to, right? But with the globalization, now you may see Brazilians going, and I think that applies to everybody else in the world. They go to Europe, right? The U.S. is not the only spot to go to. And as it relates to Brazil, one of the reasons that the U.S. was so popular, and I'm not, and don't laugh, it's about Disney. People, you know, teenagers, kids, you're laughing. They wanted to go to Disney World, and you know that's how the U.S. became so popular. Number one, and I'm talking about teenagers, right, at the time, and not to mention about merchant services, right? And companies that you have and all the cool stuff here that sometimes we take for granted. You guys may take for granted, like Nike shoes, you know, plasma TV at the time. You know, the U.S. was, you know, the only country that had it, the closest country to Brazil that had it. So people wanted to have one, and they would visit the U.S. and they would go back to Brazil with this big plasma TV. Can you believe it? Yeah. So, yeah.
Pretty cool.
Did I answer your question?
Yes, it did.
Yeah, so why did you come here?
I came here, I had a boyfriend at the time, Brazilian, and hold on, let me take a step back. I had recently or just graduated from law school. I had taken the bar exam. I was waiting on the results. And at the time, today, when you take the bar exam, you get the results 2 days later. At the time, you know, it could take a month or even 2 months, and that's due to technology. At the time, you know, people would actually have to review one by one, you know, and that would take weeks and months to give the results. So I couldn't work. I mean, I could, but not in my area, right? And I had to wait. And, you know, my sister was here at the time. I had those friends that I mentioned. And the boyfriend that I had at the time, he came to LA and to do filming school, somewhat related to what you are trying to do now. And I decided to come with him and spend a couple of months here and study English. At the time, I didn't know how to speak a word in English. And what was, you know, initially to be a month or two vacation or sabbatical, if you will, became, you know, a life project. Here I am.
That's pretty cool. So, like, you mentioned before how the U.S. was like the place to go.
Yeah.
And how it had all this technology.
Yeah.
Would you say that technology has improved your life? Like, just all around made it better and easier to live.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Let me
yeah.
give you an example. When we first moved, and then when was that move? I think that was back in 2004 or 5. Calling Brazil, one, we had to buy a card. I don't know what you call it anymore. It's a phone card. I don't know if they still sell that. And you know, you would buy it for $5, $10, whatever it was, and that would give you a number of minutes that you could talk to your family, right? And calling Brazil, like talk to my mom, I think I spent at the time like $30 at one night because the minutes would go like crazy, you know. And with technology, WhatsApp, Skype, WhatsApp, I talk to my mom every day, anytime, for nothing. I mean, of course, I need to have Verizon or AT&T or in a cell phone, right? But at the time there was cell phone, but you know, if you were to use a cell phone to make an international call, you would go bankrupt. So that's an example of technology making my life easier, right? I can call and be in touch with my friends. I can see them, my friends and my family, real time for no cost.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So in terms of not just communications, but like getting food, and like you can just run up to the grocery store in 10 minutes or
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
How long would it have taken you in Brazil to get a night's meal? Would it?
Well, in that regard, Brazil is a little bit different. I mean, I don't want to say here in the U.S., with the exception of New York City, right? Where else? New York City, Miami. I'm referring to the cities, states I've lived. LA a little bit, Chicago a little bit, but I would say with the exception mainly of New York City, very few cities or states you will find food or grocery store open, CVS, Walgreens open after 10 o'clock. In Brazil, things are open like 24/7, right?
Okay.
So in that regards, if I want to grab something to eat and it's late, in Brazil, you know, I find it to be easier versus here in the US. I still, today, if I go to Bellagio, for example, in Clifton, after 9 o'clock, the restaurant will be, you know, getting ready to,
Yeah.
right? So, but yes, it has improved considerably. In New York, for example, when I lived there until last year, we did Amazon Fresh. I don't know how familiar you guys are, but you know, because we didn't have a car, and going to the grocery store was just a pain, you know, carrying bags, and the bags usually were heavy, and you know, having to walk with those bags. We just used our phones and, you know, clicked on the Amazon Fresh app, and we ordered the grocery, tomatoes, whatever you can possibly think of, and the grocery would be in our door within an hour, or depending when we order, 24 hours. So that's technology helping us today. I don't think we have Amazon Fresh here in Virginia. I mean, here in Fairfax, do we?
No, we have like Uber Eats and
Yeah.
you name it, but not Amazon or anything
Yeah.
like that.
So
So,
yeah, I think that varies from one state to another, and even in Brazil, right? I said it's very easy to find food, but that's not everywhere in every single city, right? So
So what were some of the difficulties you faced when you moved to the U.S.? You said you didn't know English.
yeah, not knowing the language was my number one barrier. You need to communicate to people, right? And I didn't go to school to learn English. The first thing I did, at first, because later on I did go to a community college. But basically, what I did for many months was to sit down in front of the TV, watch my favorite movie, which is How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days, have subtitles on, and I have my dictionary right next to me, I kid you not, and I would stop, right, and look for the words that I was not familiar with. And so I did a lot of that. I babysat 2 little kids who were learning how to speak at the time, and I learned how to speak English with them as they were learning how to speak. So we used to watch cartoons together. Yeah, and then, you know, a year or so later, I had to apply. I had plans to validate my license here in the U.S. when I still wanted to go to law school and practice law. So I went to school to get myself ready for the TOEFL, which is an exam that tests your ability to listen, talk, and write in English. So I did that, and after that I got my MBA in finance. I never went to back to law school, by the way.
Really?
I'm in the banking industry, and I have no desire whatsoever to go back to law.
So you mentioned that a lot of people wanted to come to the United States for schooling. Are there any differences in Brazil on schooling there are in the United States?
Yes. One, quality, right, of education in Brazil is very low. Two, access to education in Brazil is very limited to very few. And in terms of the education itself, right, the program, how the system runs, in Brazil you may see that here you self-teach yourself in a way. You get direction, guidance from your professors, teachers, but it's up to you, it's on you how you take it from there, right? In Brazil, I feel that there was a lot of hand holding in terms of getting the student ready for, you know, the next step, right? The learning itself was, you know, very closely together. Let me tell you how you do it, where you go, how you research, you know, and all of that. So
You mentioned you were a banker, and going back to Brazil a little bit is they have a lot of agriculture in the economy. So do you think that's holding the economy back since they're not making as many manufactured goods and they're relying heavily on
No, I don't think that's the issue. Actually, it's something that we should leverage more to grow and improve our economy. The main issues, from my perspective, that we have in Brazil is number one, corruption.
Okay.
Unfortunately, our politicians do not make good use of our money, and our resources are not invested in the right way. So when people ask me about Brazil and how we can fix our current political, economic, and social situation, my first response, and it's a response that my dad, when he was alive, and that was 20 years ago, said or used to say, and to me it's still the same answer. It starts with education, right? If you don't have if you don't have individuals well educated with true values, right? Everything that you're gonna do from there, it's gonna be wrong, right? Because in Brazil, people do not make good use of your money. they used for their own purposes. And when you have people that are usually well educated, they think about the society and they think about the person sitting next to you. They think about the future, right? And if we do not have education, we can't have anything else. You will not know how to invest, where to invest, how to provide to your country, how to help with safety, right?
Yeah.
So
It makes sense that education would be the root of it.
So you mentioned safety, and recently President Bolsonaro was elected, and he has been passing different bills on gun control.
Yep.
So what is your opinion on that?
What's your opinion about that?
So
What do you think about that? Here in the U.S., we also have a similar challenge, right?
yeah,
Do
Well,
you have any views on that?
yeah, I do. I feel like we should decrease the amount of guns,
Mm-hmm.
because if we do that, then or decrease the accessibility to guns. But President Bolsonaro did the opposite thing. He made
Yeah,
guns
but
more
just so you know, I
accessible.
can give you the latest on that.
Mhm.
The Congress gave a stop on that bill,
Oh.
so it's on standby right now. But to answer your question, and if my husband was sitting right next to me, he would be like, "No," he disagree with my opinion, with what I think about this. I'm against it, especially in Brazil. That's him calling, by the way. And it goes back to education. If you do not have a well-educated country, if people are not well-educated, they won't know what to do with a gun, how to use it, when to use it, right? I do believe in the discretionary use of guns. So there needs to be criteria, one, on who you sell to and why, right? I don't think the answer is no across the board, but for Brazil right now at this moment, I don't think the population is equipped with the tools to make good use of it.
so you keep on going
Not
back,
good, the right use of it.
So you keep going back to this emphasis on education.
Yeah,
And you say that it's not the highest priority in Brazil.
no, it is not.
What is your opinion on how people could help
Improve?
improve the stance of education in the country?
Yeah, I don't think it's one solution to it. I don't
Okay.
think it's one person. I think each one of us, we are able to change the world, right? But doing one little thing here and there, right? And that goes with education in Brazil. And I think the folks that have the privilege of having education today should feel responsible and accountable to lead this change, because they are the ones that have access to it, right? But they cannot solve for it. So I think it's everybody, each one of us doing a little bit of, things that we believe may change. And, at the end, we will be able to make a big change, right? It's teamwork. It's not one person, right?
Yeah.
This is not gonna change in a day, in a month. Unfortunately, I wish that was the answer, right? We need to pay better our teachers. They should be the ones to get the highest pay, right? I mean, they are the ones that teach everything we know.
That's true.
So, my sister, she's a teacher, and I'm here on her defense.
So you said you were a banker.
Yes, I am.
Are there any other jobs in Brazil that are like more prominent, like that a lot of people have?
That a lot of people have.
Like, are there any careers that are heavily followed by many people? popular careers?
Yes, so it's hard to answer this question because in a way we need, well, when you think about prosperity and if you think about making money, right? Because there are different, and this is why I'm saying that this question is tricky. There are different ways to answer. If you ask in Brazil, for example, it depends where you belong, where you are in the in the society or your economic status, right? Because someone may wish, and that's very unfortunate that I have to say that, but someone may want to be an attorney, a dentist, a doctor, but they unfortunately they may not have access to it, right? So we need to put reality in perspective here as well, right? And having access to what do you want to be. But you know, if you are in that group that have more access to education, so to answer your question, you will see people wanting to be doctors, attorneys, and dentists, right? Psychology is also, a big trend right now. But the less privileged group, you may see them as cab drivers, bus drivers, they may be cashiers, they may do housework, meaning cleaning services. In Brazil we have maids, we have cooks, people that actually, it's cultural, right? Here, when you think about this concept of having a maid or somebody that cooks to you every day or cleans or goes after you and put your shoes away, that, you take your shoes off, you leave right there. Next thing you know, it's in the closet, It's a pretty nice, cool concept, but it's very cheap. The service is cheap in Brazil. Here, service is really expensive, right? And that's due to not having access to a number of things, right? So yeah. Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
So your husband, Daniel, Mr. Ribeiro, he became a dentist.
Yeah. I mean, he was a dentist in Brazil already.
Oh, okay.
He validated his license here in the U.S. Yeah.
Okay. So, did you guys meet in Brazil or here?
In Brazil.
In Brazil. Yeah. So was he educated in Brazil or here?
In Brazil.
In Brazil. Okay. Just curious.
Yeah.
Because you were saying that a lot of people wanted to become dentists and doctors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, he owned his own practice in Brazil. He inherited from his dad, and once his dad retired, his brother and him, they took over the practice, and now that he's here, it's only his brother, but the office, his clinic is still running in Brazil. Yeah. He moved because of me, really. I got a job offer, and I never thought he was gonna do it. One, because he was a very well-established dentist in Brazil, and in order to become a dentist here, he had to go through everything he went through, going back to school, having to learn English because he didn't know English either, so yeah, so I wasn't expecting him to, to say yes to moving to the US, and he did, so here we are. Yeah.
So you talked about how having maids in Brazil is more of a cultural thing. Are there any other cultural differences between Brazil and America that you've noticed since you've lived here?
So in Brazil we tend to be very close to people, physically speaking, like standing in line, for example, at the grocery store. Here I haven't noticed that as much, and maybe because we have so many foreigners living here in this area. But here Americans tend to, need some space. Cars are really big, right? And in Brazil we're so close. You turn your head and there is somebody right there next to you. And living here for so long, sometimes when I go back to Brazil and I'm standing in line at the grocery store and I make a move and somebody's right there behind me, I'm like, whoa, what are you doing? It's kind of weird that now that I've seen both sides. What else? We are loud, very loud in Brazil. You guys here not as much. You laughing, Nicholas? What else? How much time do we have?
Right now we're on 30 minutes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so
That's
that
the minimum, I think.
Is it the minimum or the maximum?
I think that's the minimum. I think the maximum is 45.
Yeah.
Well,
So we have time for one more question,
Yeah.
and then we can wrap this up,
yeah.
sounds good.
and then we can eat some pizza. I'm hungry.
I'm hungry too.
You ran out of questions?
Okay.
Can I
so-
ask
a lot
you
of
guys
questions.
questions?
Sure. Why not?
Yeah, I have a question for you guys. What do you think about having foreigners in your country? Is this something that you embrace? Do you feel a value to your country, to your personal development? What are your views?
Personally, well, you and Mr. Rayo, just having foreigners, I think, really broadens our perspective of other people, cultures included. And I think it's an honor that this country is welcoming all these people, and that that I was born here and have this chance and opportunity to know you guys. And at school, there's tons of different ethnic people, and I love it. I really do think it's a pleasure.
Good.
I definitely agree. I think it's very nice to have so many different ideas from people that come from all over the world that can kind of go on one task and try to make everything better. So I definitely think it's very good, very nice. I don't think that's right. That we have all kinds of people from all different places. in the
But
world.
tell me something. I want to hear something. You don't need to be. I guess what I'm trying to say. You don't need just to say the positives about it. Right? I'm sure there are negatives of having foreigners in your country. When I lived in Brazil, there were a lot of foreigners there as well during some specific times of the year, and I had my reservations about that. So I'm sure you have some. I want to hear about it.
Personally, when someone else from outside the country, an immigrant comes, they can be very secluded
Yeah.
inside themselves. And the way I am very not secluded. And I guess to me, it kind of not necessarily annoys me, but or frustrates me. It just kind of gets a little bit in the way of me trying to be who I am, because these people are so just not possibly like as open with everyone. Like you say, in Brazil, everyone's very open with each other, and here we're actually a little more secluded. But in other countries, they're more secluded than they are here. And I guess that's just kind of a little thing that I have that annoys me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like, my parents moved from India when they were around college. So whenever I meet with Indian relatives in America, it's kind of, it feels very different from when I go meet with like American friends and stuff. Because the cultures are all different. And I guess that's good, but sometimes it's kind of weird because I've grown up on American culture as well as Indian culture.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a split because some customs or cultural things that are culturally accepted in America are not in India, or vice versa. So it's kind of weird, but it's good because that's part of what makes America great, like having all these different cultures and customs come together.
Make America great again. I didn't say that. You said that. I'm just joking.
Going back to you, real quick, is when you were young, did you grow up with any American immigrants into Brazil?
No, not
No?
really. Not really. No, my dad he was a journalist and writer and very curious about the world. And that's, I think, I can't think about anything else. That's how my desire about going abroad and explore other cultures and countries came about. And but back to him, he lived in Europe, in London, Paris. He spoke 5 languages, so he was just an inspiration to me. And he learned 5 languages when he was 40. So yeah, because he couldn't travel. I mean, that was how many years ago? So things were not as easy. We were not as globalized. Access to things were not. We didn't even have computer at the time that my husband was. I mean, my dad was alive, but we were probably just getting ourselves started. But so he was an inspiration on that. Meaning, he spoke 5 languages. He lived in a number of countries. So I wanted to see for myself what he was describing in his books, his articles, and what I saw in pictures. So, but no, really, I never had any interaction with foreigners until I came here.
So you said that in Brazil they look up to America as like, or they used to at least. Do you think that's right, that they should look up to America, or like now living in America?
I don't know if the answer is right or wrong, but I think we should always leverage or get inspired by the ones that are at the top. Right? So the ones that we know or we think they are doing the right thing, right? Or they are excelling on something, right? So that should inspire you. You should use it as a mirror, right? So that's how we get better. So yeah, I think so. And that's for every country, right? I mean,
yeah.
So one more quick question before we wrap this up is, so you know my grandfather.
Yes, I love him. I love Joe.
Back when he was in work, he worked with an Indian man named Rohit, and he rode into his marriage on an elephant. When you and Mr. Ribeiro got married, did you do any cultural traditions that are considered possibly crazy here in America, or like?
We didn't. That's a really good question. There you go. You got me right there. I don't think we did anything.
No?
No, we should, right?
You should.
We
yeah.
still have time.
In Brazil, would
Thanks
you guys
for
have
that
any?
question.
Is there any special traditions in Brazil if you still were married?
No, I don't think so. I mean, we, like you guys, we do have not a tradition, but for the ones that can or have a dream of, they do have the big wedding and but we do not have the bridesmaid. I mean, we do, but it's not in the same way that you guys do here. All of them dressed in the same color, even same dress. Nowadays, I've noticed that has changed a bit, but the color remains the same. The dress can be a little different. We don't have that in Brazil. But yeah, but it's very, very similar when it comes to the wedding ceremony and reception and all of that. But I think we need to tie, something, chain somewhere in a bridge, like people doing the Wall of China and all of that. So, right?
All right.
Yeah, that's.
Thank you for your time.
Thank
Yeah.
you. This was fun.
It was very fun. I enjoyed this.
Yes.
I did too.
When is the next one? All
All
right.
right. Thank you.
Yeah, that was
Let me know if you need anything
really
else.
cool. Okay.